It's a great privilege to have with us today a panel of thought leaders that probably knows better than anyone what the future holds in terms of mobile measurement. Please join me in welcoming Gayle Fuguitt, CEO and President, Advertising Research Foundation. She'll be moderating today. Chasin, Chief Research Officer at comScore. Kevin King, SVP Media and Mobile Trends and Product Innovation at GfK MRI. Scott McDonald from Nomos Research, and Adam Shlachter. All right, there you are. Good. Thanks.
Thank you. So fascinating presentations this morning so far. I think what I like to do is open it up. So at the ARF, we know that 74% of marketers say that they're held to a greater standard of accountability than ever before. And you know, with the statement that was just made, you can't get what you can't measure. I want to open it up. Maybe start with you, Adam, on do you think that mobile measurement is even possible?
Well, it's got to be. If we have stats that say we're checking our phones on average 220 times a day, which last time I heard that stat, it was 150. So it's growing. So it's got to be measured somehow, right? I think the challenge is the measurement is lacking a lot of standard and scalability of the different standards that exist. So there's a lot of competition in how to measure, what matters. And unfortunately, it doesn't fit into a lot of the sort of more common metrics that we're used to evaluating media on other channels. So it's getting there, but it's not there yet.
So Scott, you've seen things change tremendously over the course of your career as former head of research at Condé Nast, as well as now doing a lot of consulting even in neuroscience. And we certainly know with Moore's Law that the pace of change is happening even more quickly. Where would you start? What would be a good starting point in terms of mobile measurement compared to television, and how do you see that, especially for this print category, which is so critically important?
Well, I think we've come some distance already, and I think you have the advantage of some clarification of which kinds of formats work best on small screens. So looking at mobile now versus a year or two ago, it seems to me that we've made a lot of progress. The real obstacle to the common metrics that are used for other media really has to do with the fact that most activity on mobile is within apps. Like 80% was the figure that I've seen. And even if you're dealing with mobile web, you don't have a lot of the same elements that allow you to at least make an attempt to deduplicate audience, because any individual person, audience is a human character, irrespective of the platform. Any person is having contact with media on multiple platforms. And if you can't deduplicate it, you can't do reach and frequency, you can't do planning around that. So we're very good now at being able to tell how many impressions and what kinds of impressions are being sent to these devices. We just have a hard time clarifying who they are and how much they overlap with the other platforms that they have access to. So that's still the big obstacle, and I think that's still in front of us.
Yeah, so a lot of complexity in there. Yeah. And then you have, of course, ad blocking and privacy, PII, and some of those kind of folded in there. We'll talk about that in a minute, kind of teeing up this kind of topic of is location the new cookie. So we'll come back around to that. But okay, now we got the answer guys, right? Got the gurus here. So there's a big difference. We just, Horst, who's my EVP of neuroscience and global research at the ARF, just did a meta-analysis, and we discovered through this neuroscience work that literally there's our brainwave reactions and a positive impact when you turn a page. There's a big difference between turning a page and swiping and pinching, right? So when you think about measuring mobile, how are you, GfK and comScore, and the rest of the industry, how are you accommodating measurement and the metrics? It's beyond the count to this actual consumer behavior.
Mm-hmm. I think even with apps, there's that kind of breaks all conventional metrics that we're used to. What's a page view in an app, and I think what we're facing in mobile is it's a bit of a moving target. Pervasive cookies across mobile is preventing us from measuring it really well. and it's preventing us from targeting it, really well. And then with all the updates of Android and iOS, like I said, it makes it a moving target. So it's hard, but I think we're all of us are working on catching up to measuring mobile and looking at things like location and trying to figure out this space and better report on it.
How does global fit in?
Well, can I answer the other question?
You can answer anything you want.
Okay. I'm 7.
It's Jeopardy. You tell me what the question is.
No, because while he was talking, I was preparing my answer to the same question.
Of course you were. You weren't listening to him.
Yeah, he's a JFK, right? So we know that the experience that the consumer undergoes in consuming different media are fundamentally different, right? So yeah, looking at a website, pinching and scrolling is cognitively different from turning pages, but also cognitively different from watching a TV show, as is a magazine and a TV show. So we know that the experience that the consumer has on different media are different. I think there's 2 things that are really, so the first question, which was, can we even measure mobile? And we know we can, because I've sat here all morning and heard metrics cited. But there's 2 things that I think make mobile challenging right now. One is the environment itself is very difficult for measurement. And Kevin talked about cookies, right? So you have a lot of cookie rejection in mobile. The operating systems in mobile are smaller and leaner than Windows or Mac OS. And so if you want to put a meter on a device, there's there are fewer processes that you can hook into to measure. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you that we meter phones, we meter tablets, we meter computers. We can get more stuff from meter measurement on computers than we can on phones or tablets because there's more going on with the OS that we can hook into. There are more capabilities. So one is just fundamentally the environment right now is somewhat inhospitable to measurement because the toolkit just isn't there for traditional device measurement. The other thing is that the advent of mobile makes us all suddenly want to track people across devices. The first thing that, because I work at comScore and I spend a lot of time visiting with publishers, many of them are even in the room today, and I've had these conversations with some of you. When mobile started coming around, what we started hearing from publishers was, I have content and I have audience, and my audience interacts with my content on different platforms throughout the day, and I want to understand that holistically. So to me, very much mobile introduces the question of how do you follow somebody across platforms? And that is a whole different challenge from how do you just stick the measurement in one platform and measure that one platform.
So we know that the CEO's question, the C-suite question is, do my marketing dollars drive growth and sales? And kind of as you're bringing up, where should I spend my next dollar? Do you think that, we've got big data, we've got panels represented here, we want to get some controversy going before lunch, right? So we can have a tabletop discussion and maybe compete with the Republican debate. So do you think that big data is going to be the answer, or do you think that legacy panels and continuing to build those panels to do this kind of cross-platform measurement is going to provide some solutions? Jump ball, anybody want to dive in?
Yeah, I want that one.
I thought you might.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, anyone else? Any no's?
I think you have to look at data at the most sort of atomic level. You got to look at individuals. We all have different experiences with our mobile devices. They're extensions of us. It's like an appendage. If we're checking it as often as we are, and if we're personalizing them as much as we are. And as a result, we each use them differently, which means that while you can probably cluster us together into different groups of similar behaviors, we each represent different opportunities for marketers based on who we are, based on our usage, based on our sort of usage within different environments or context. And based on the behaviors that we might exhibit when certain stimuli are put in front of us in different environments. We're all going to react differently to the same piece of creative on Facebook based on how we consume media or content on Facebook.
Yes, the point that the one from Cargo was making.
Right. And if you think about the sort of depth of engagement that might exist and the sort of variation between that amongst just everyone in this room, you would have an incredible sort of observation to be able to pull insights out of about how different people function.
Thank you. Is that better? Yes.
I mean, shit, I can hear
Oh,
myself.
you
Adam,
need to-
start again. Start again.
Just repeat that.
So, I'm not saying panels are dead, but in this day and age where we can look
No,
at...
but I like your atomic measurement. I
You
think
could
that's a good-
look at people, not as broad-based segments. You can get a much different read on the sort of portrait that's painted based on the behaviors they exhibit, particularly on mobile devices, let alone on how that interplays with everything else that they do. So the tools that we have today largely don't let us do that. They're built off legacy panels that are built off of channels. So I've got to do TV in one, I've got to do web in another, and obviously you guys are doing a lot of fusion work to bring that together, which is improving it, but it's certainly not real time, and it's certainly not telling me what's happening today. So I think we need to look at it completely differently. Obviously the challenges that exist are, can you get to it? Do the operating systems allow you that sort of peek inside? Do the privacy policies allow you to do that? Do people want to be tracked in that way? Well, one way or the other, they're being tracked. We all are. But if we can do something more useful with it, we can make the content better. We can make it fit in better. People stop blocking things because it'll be more relevant to them. And we can make it more valuable based on how much time they're actually committing to these devices. We can create better experiences. And I think the trade-off there is we have to know how they're consuming it to improve those experiences over and over again. And I don't think panel data is as telling, as individual level data when it comes to that.
Yeah, so go ahead, Kevin.
I was just going to say, I think we need to start somewhere. And when I was, I'm new to this side of the business. Most recently, I was at Univision, and in 1 year, our digital traffic went from 30% mobile to 70% mobile. And my sales team were looking at me saying,
Now what do we do?
Now what do we do? We have to change the way we sell. Who are these people who are using mobile? How are the profiles different? So I think one of the things we're doing at GFK is we're starting with a panel, and we're looking at other ways to layer different things on top of it. We have a panel, we have survey research already, really deep insights, market research insights. Laying that over mobile data and then laying other things over it to try and kind of paint that picture of who these people are that are using mobile on specific apps and mobile sites.
So,
With your hand, well, go.
oh, so you had asked before, so where's it going, big data or panels? And I said yes, because just making the point that you need both. What we've learned, probably the most profound thing that comScore has learned, and not just us, but the industry, over the last, say, 5 or 7 years, is that there's no one single data asset that you can bring to bear to build a measurement solution. Panels are necessary, but they're insufficient. They're wholly insufficient.
A big thought.
Yeah, and big data assets are useful, but they are typically not built to be measurement assets. So they're super helpful, but you've got to figure out what to do with them to bring them to bear. So we're very much in the school of thought that says you've got to aggregate quality data assets of different types and then assemble them to make measurement solutions.
I would echo that. I think publishers very often need to be able to talk about their audience cross-platform in the same way that content providers in television do. And it's an old-fashioned definition of audience. It has the notion of people in a room like this being exposed to the same content. Digitally, that's not really how it's being bought and sold for the most part. It's addressable impressions, and audience is an assembly of these data assets across a lot of different things, which may or may not even involve media. You saw all of the in the previous presentation, lots of different uses of mobile devices that have nothing to do with media, but that's where people are spending time, and those are advertising opportunities, marketing opportunities that are not related at all to media. So it's a different definition of audience in digital. It's more about, is it addressable and is it accurate? I think publishers have a lot of great first-party data. They have an opportunity to try to build from that, to play in both of those. But I think it's helpful when we talk about it to realize that we're not always referring to the same thing when we use the word audience.
So do you think it's going to get worse before it gets better with ad blocking and this lack of cookie or this evolution? And is location the new cookie? What's your take on the trajectory we're on right now?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I heard a lot at Adweek a few weeks ago, or a month ago, that location is the new cookie. Some of these companies that I think they do a really good job at leveraging location to build profiles of people, and when you look at how do you target on mobile, really it's about locational targeting and contextual targeting, and so I think when it comes to location, but I think it's a bit of a dangerous space, because when you're just relying on location to develop profiles of people and target them accordingly, I think location is one element. I think it's a great element and very contextually relevant for a lot of campaigns. But I think it's dangerous just to focus on that as one source of profiling and using that to target.
So let's talk metrics for a minute. You come from different standpoints, right? Buyers, sellers, publishers. A lot of connection, including my own, to the advertisers. What are the key metrics that management is looking for? And I really like this bridging over to, we know at the RF that advertising works. Television advertising works, it's being redefined, and print advertising works, and radio advertising works, but how do we get it all connected together? What advice would you give this industry, who has done a better job than I think many others at coalescing and coming to an aggregated perspective on how to fuel better decision making? What advice would you give the audience here in this area of metrics?
So ultimately, if I sit down with a client, they just care about business outcomes. Are they acquiring new customers? Are they retaining their current customers? Are they selling them more? Are they creating more loyalty? Are they shifting share?
So sales first, or
ultimately that's where they want to get to. But in order to get there, you've got to find what the bridge is. Oftentimes, I think when it comes to media in general, but mobile in particular, given how crowded and how noisy and how fragmented it is, it comes down to attention. Am I capturing people's attention? Am I getting them to stop the scroll and lean in and spend some time with a piece of content? Whether that's a video, whether that's a snap, whether that's a pin, whether that is an ad that they can interact with. If they can spend time with it and then subsequently take an action on it, I can then tie that to some more specific business outcome, particularly if I've got the right hooks into data. But if I'm just looking at passive impressions and theoretical levels of reach, which I look at in every channel, it's all theoretical. It doesn't matter unless it's actually delivered. And if it's delivered, it doesn't matter unless someone actually spent time with it. I've got an incredible opportunity to measure that in mobile in a much more unique way, given how much time people are spending there and given how much data we can get out of different apps and different OSs. Again, the challenge is the standards compete. And we talk about it with things like viewability constantly, too much probably. But we've got to get to a point where it is more universal and it becomes almost more of a currency.
Others?
Yeah, well, if you, I sort of come back to the ARF model of how advertising works. And you really have to start with exposure, because if you can't measure exposure, you can't measure anything else, right? We obviously want to know if exposure to the advertising moves
Which
product.
becomes viewability.
Yeah, exposure and then OTS, opportunity to see. So if you're not exposed and you don't see the ad, don't have an opportunity to see the ad, then you can't start thinking about effectiveness. Did we sell more stuff because the consumer saw the ad? That's the question everybody wants to know. But the first question is, did the consumer see the ad? Because you can't go further into that funnel unless you answer that first question. So, and obviously in the audience measurement business, we're kind of fixated on measuring exposure, sort of counting and describing the audience, which is what audience measurement has always been. But that's step one. That's not the end. That's the beginning.
Okay.
But to build on that, you've got to go from passive to active metrics, right? So an opportunity to see is absolutely necessary. If an ad isn't seen, then there's no way it had an impact. And I don't care what studies have been done to show partial views. An ad has to have an opportunity to be seen. But if someone spends a millisecond with it versus 3 seconds versus 5 seconds versus 10, that duration or time spent or attention that they pay, I believe, has a more dramatic effect over time, whether that's sequential or whether that's in a particular moment. So yeah, exposures matter because otherwise we can't get to engagement.
So let's just touch on global for a minute. All your organizations have some global connectivity. So I remember, I don't know, this was over 5 years ago, 74% of consumers in rural China had a feature phone not a smartphone. But and at the point in time, like I want to say 10, 15 years ago, early mobile research and measurement came when I was at General Mills, was coming actually from Sweden and Finland and right Scandinavian countries. And so I'm really curious how you see global. Are we going to look outside the U.S. for some of the best practices in this area of measurement? And do you think there are people outside the U.S. today that are actually cracking this measurement code more effectively, even if it's on a smaller scale?
I mean, from GfK standpoint, we're doing a lot of cross-platform measurement, mobile included, around the world. I think they're not that much farther ahead than we are, I would say. I think that's fair to say. I think our specific in the U.S. our specific strategy for going to market is leveraging MRI, because that's what we're known for here. We can't just do what we've been doing internationally in the U.S. because there are other companies like comScore and Nielsen, and we have a different. We're more of a pre-sale and market sizing kind of pre-sale tool. So that's what we're kind of focusing on. But when we talk to our colleagues around the world, yes, they're thinking about cross-platform, but I don't think they're that far ahead of us, because really a lot of the issues that we're having with measuring is a technological issue. It's not a skills issue or a...
Yeah,
Is that fair to say?
I'll tell you, Gayle, I think 6 or 7 years ago, other countries were way ahead of us, because what happened was...
I felt that too.
Yeah, like in Asia and in Latin America, these companies, because of the sort of infrastructure in the country, they leapfrogged computers, right? They never had a computer age. They went right to a mobile age. So here you had everybody using computers to get on the internet, whereas in APAC and Latin America, they just get right to mobile, and they were ahead of us. They had better phones. They had higher phone penetration, higher smartphone penetration. But I don't think anybody would argue that if you're not doing mobile right, you're not doing measurement right at this point. So I think we've caught up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to close it off here. I have one quick question. There's the new latest buzzword is walled gardens, right? It seems. And it's interesting because a garden is a beautiful thing, but a wall is maybe something else. So it's a little marketing twist. So my question is, do you think there is a prayer of a chance for advertisers, like the seat that I sat in for so many years, a prayer of a chance that there can be a DMP for these advertisers that breaks down these walled gardens? Can the industry actually do what the print organization has done, right? And created an industry-wide guarantee of print ad results, like broke down the gardens and has you all have coalesced and are driving growth and change and taken a step forward as leaders. It's a yes or no, so we can go into lunch and then we can mix it up, okay? Anybody can start. Adam's looking at me like, no, not me first.
Not anytime soon.
No.
I know it's a big issue for advertisers, and I would like to think that if they, through the ANA, for example, if they can pull their money and say,
yes or no?
Maybe. I'm sort of, hopefully.
Over the next year or two, no. I don't see it.
Yes, but it's going to take time and money.
Okay. All right. So we have a yes, a maybe.
I'll make mine a yes.
A wimp out.
Maybe
Okay.
it's a yes.
Yeah,
All right.
ultimately,
Okay.
yes. Ultimately,
maybe
walls
yes.
break
All
down,
All right.
But-
So check out these guys at lunch and find the yes table, the no table, the maybe table, and the hopeful table. I want to sit at the hopeful table.
Always researching. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
I know there's going to be questions. So my suggestion is meet these guys out during lunch.